Hey guys, welcome back. In this video today, I'm going to be processing some raw clay. I'm going to go find this along a creek or riverbed, and there's a bunch of sand and junk in it that you need to refine out. So today I'm going to be wet processing that and making it usable for throwing on a pottery wheel. Now most soil has clay in it. You can do this with just about any soil and you'll come out with a little bit of clay. But if you want to find some really good concentrated clay that'll give you the most clay for the amount of soil that you have to dig, I would check down by a riverbed or a creek along the banks where the soil has eroded away. Lots of times you can find some really good clay that has very few impurities in it. So I'm going to be wet processing this clay today. So basically you just use a lot of water and mix that clay or soil into that water, and basically that suspends the smaller clay particles in the water. As soon as you stop mixing it, you could let this sit for just a few minutes and all that sand and rocks, pebbles will go down to the bottom, and it'll leave all the clay up mixed in with the water on the surface. You can pour that off carefully and leave all the rocks and debris at the bottom of that bucket. And once you have that clay poured off, there's a lot of excess water, so if you leave this sitting out for a day or two, you can come back and that clay will actually settle down at the bottom of the bucket, leaving clear water above it. Then you can just start pouring off the clear water, getting rid of that excess water, leaving just the clay behind. Once that dries out a little bit, then it's usable clay. So for the 2 buckets that I harvested, I have 1 full bucket of clay that's really bright red, which is pretty typical for where I'm located in the southeast United States. There's red clay everywhere. Then in the other bucket, I have a whole bunch of this gray clay. This seems like it's more concentrated clay, so it'll be fun to test both of these out and see which one gives me better results. Alright, so I've got all my buckets of clay here. They've been processed through sifting back and forth a few times through the buckets, so now it should be just straight clay, very low in sand and grit in this right now. But it's been sitting for 2 days and this will not separate. There's maybe like 1/4 of an inch of clear water on top, but the clay just doesn't seem like it wants to settle. I've seen a tip on YouTube: if you use a little bit of apple cider vinegar or just white vinegar, you pour a little bit in there, it should be good by the next morning. So I'm gonna try that and see if this works. So it's been 2 or 3 days now and doesn't look like there's been much of a difference, and there's a lot of clay still suspended in that water. And I don't think it takes much. Alright, so this is the next day. That vinegar works really well on the red clay. The gray clay is still murky, but it's not nearly as bad as what it used to be. I can almost see the bottom in some of these, so I think that's mostly separated. I'll go ahead and finish that off. But yeah, you can see all the way to the bottom on that one as well. So that's looking good. That should be just straight clay at the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and pour off all the clear water off the top and then combine all this into one spot. From what I can tell, it seems like clays have different amounts of time that it takes for them to separate. Some separate a lot quicker. These ones definitely needed that vinegar to encourage that to sort of settle down at the bottom and separate from the water. So that's a really cool trick. I'm glad I saw that. Alright, so I've got a towel here that I'm going to be straightening the clay out and helping it dry out a little bit quicker. You could use a bed sheet or an old pillowcase. I'm going to put this in the bucket and clamp the edge of this towel onto the bucket so that it doesn't fall inside. All right, so one of my clays are right here on the ground, wrapped up in that cloth. That keeps all the bugs out and it's allowing it to dry really quick. And so after today, that should be ready to go. I can start working with it after that. And then the other one I've got right here hung up, and you can see it's starting to hold shape. It just needs to lose a little bit of moisture today, and then I can start working with that clay as well. The gray clay that I have here was a lot more concentrated. There's not as much sand in this clay, so I'm gonna add in a little bit of sand in here. You don't wanna have straight clay or else it ends up not being stable enough. You can have cracking as it dries or as you fire it in the kiln. So I'm gonna add in a little bit of sand in here to help sort of separate a little bit of those clay particles and really add some stabilization to that clay. This clay is a little bit too wet to be working with right now. It's sticking to my hands, but we've got some rain coming through, so I want to get this mixed together and put it in some buckets so I can store it before that rain ends up soaking all of my clay. I really enjoy pottery, but unfortunately I haven't had the opportunity to throw in about 6 years now, so I'm a little bit rusty, but I'm really excited about getting back into it. So because of this, I'm trying to work through getting all the equipment myself so I can do pottery again. And so I found this pottery wheel on Amazon. It's a really good price for a pottery wheel. I would say this is definitely a good level for beginners to medium level potters. Definitely not a professional quality pottery wheel, but it does the job and does a good job at that. So I'm really excited about testing this out and getting back into pottery. But like I mentioned, this is my first time doing this in 6 years, so definitely a little rusty. I messed up on this first one, but it was good just to be back on the wheel, testing it out, having some fun. It doesn't always work as you're working with pottery. Sometimes the clay just doesn't cooperate. This time the clay's a little bit too wet. Like I mentioned before, I need to let this dry a little more, but I was able to, the second time around, come up with a decent bowl or cup. One thing I will mention about the pottery wheel, it's a little tricky because it doesn't seem like it goes slow enough. It definitely goes faster than I'll ever need it to go, but the slowest setting on it doesn't completely go slow. It cuts off before it slows down all the way to a stop. So it's a little bit harder sometimes if the clay's a little too wet. It will just expand and end up exploding instead of staying confined in the one place you want. So it goes a little faster than I like, but I'll probably be able to get used to that and be able to work around it. Alright guys, that just about finishes up the video for today. I'm gonna throw one more time, and this time it does a lot better. This is only my second time throwing now in 6 years, so not too bad. I'm happy with how it turned out, but I'm definitely excited about getting back into this and practicing more. I also need to start setting up my kiln and get that ready to fire so that I can actually see how this clay does once it's fired and show you guys that. I'll probably be doing a video in the future of firing this clay just to prove that this clay works and it looks really good. So I'm really excited about that. So hopefully there'll be future videos to come, but let me know what you guys thought of this video. I know this is a little bit different from my typical video, but I'd be very interested in what you guys think. Also, I'm definitely not a professional at this. I've taken quite a few classes. I really enjoy pottery, and so if you guys have any pointers, tricks, tips, I'm open to hearing what you guys have to say. So please be sure to let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I want to give a big shout out to all my supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and making videos like this possible. If anyone's interested in checking out the Patreon, I'll leave the link down in the description below. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one.